Welcome everybody to this product demo of the lenses.io platform. While this is vertical and title agnostic, we will go through a few use cases that are applicable to most lenses.io users. While we will not address questions during the demo, we will address your questions after, so please submit them. We will answer them and get you the answers you need. My name is Evan Rosenstein. I am the Senior Demand Generation Manager here at lenses.io. I'm reaching you guys from the States in Connecticut from my parents' house. And I am joined by Adamos, who is our Enterprise Solutions Architect. Adamos, I pass it over to you.
Thanks, Evan. Hello from my side. Adamos is the name. Yeah, I'm here to talk about things technical, and let's actually do a bit of a demo of lenses. Evan, I think you want to allow me to share my screen.
I'll do that right now. Should be good to go.
Yep, cool. All right, let's get cracking. All right, should be able to see my screen. Let's make it a bit bigger. All right, so all right, let's get started. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna log in with my own credentials using basic authentication, but that's not the only way you can log in. We support various options ranging from LDAP to Active Directory to single sign-on. So there's a wide variety there. And we've landed at the dashboard of lenses. The idea is that with this dashboard, you can get to see a 360 view of what's happening in your platform. If we start from the top left, you get to see the health of your infrastructure. You can see that we've connected to your Kafka brokers, your Zookeeper, your Schema Registry if you have one, and your Connect clusters. Everything is green, everything is good. If we move on to the next session, this is a live widget of showing you all the data coming through the streaming platform. Here we can say that we're operating with our more than 300 gigabytes of data, and we have around 11.5 thousand records coming in per second. Further down, we have the data section, which gives us an understanding of where is my data, where is it placed, how is it structured. Here we can see that we have 171 topics. We have 89 that are empty, a good number to keep in mind for house cleaning because, you know, as developers, we like to create topics to trial some stuff and then we forget to delete them. The total number of partitions, and a couple of interesting metrics here that indicate problems. Basically, if you have under-replicated partitions, or even worse, if you get offline partitions. If you do get under-replicated partitions, that usually means that your Kafka is under full load at capacity level. Basically, it's having a hard time keeping up and replicating the partitions. So that's usually a case where you need to scale up your Kafka. Offline partitions, that's an even worse scenario because basically it means that probably at least one of your nodes is going down and a whole partition is not accessible. So that's a bigger problem. Moreover, in terms of where's my data, as we said, we integrate with Schema Registry, which means that we have full access to all of your schemas here. And then something unique to Lenses itself, the idea of safely democratizing your data to all of your business by using data policies. And these policies will take care of masking your sensitive data automatically and on the fly. And we'll get to see more about it later.
Now, Damas, before you move on, who uses these dashboards? Who's it most useful for at the companies we work with?
Right. So you can have different types of users finding it useful. From, starting from the basics, you can imagine your DevOps wanting to understand, okay, how's my platform infrastructure-wise looking? Is it healthy? What's the statistics of data coming through? Then you might also be interested in security, right? Whether it's through the data policies or through auditing, because everything we do is audited in Lenses, or alerts, because we have a dedicated alert section. Then if we're talking about developers, then we definitely want to understand the end-to-end picture. We're talking about topics. I need to be able to understand how many topics we have. And this can also be useful for capacity planning, right? If today we had 170 and tomorrow you open up and you see 300, well, something happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is to try and capture a wide spectrum of people involved in Kafka, from the people keeping the infrastructure up and running all the way to the people dealing with data, your application developers, and even your business analysts. And with regards to the latter, we even have this flow section, which is there to show you how everything fits together, how all the citizens, all the systems that connect to Kafka, what do they look like? Here, for example, we have 16 consumers, right, reading Kafka right now. 11 are inactive, 12 connectors because we integrate with Kafka Connect, and 5 processors, which could be your own custom applications that you've written in many languages, or even better, you can actually produce production quality applications just by writing a bit of SQL with our Lenses SQL processors. And we're going to have a look at that later on as well. All right, that's the dashboard. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move us to exploring data and understanding a little bit more of the data we have in our platform.
Fantastic.
All right, if we go into Kafka topics, you can see here that we have the full directory of all of our topics. It's very easy to look for particular ones, right? Let's say position. We get out of the box macro metrics and information around our topics, you know, total number of records, the key and value types, whether it's Avro or maybe it's something else, string or XML. Replication factors, the number of consumers that are reading a topic, and the number of partitions. You can delete a topic or you can create a topic, very easy. And not only that, but now in the latest version, we're also introducing approval flows. This is especially useful for our enterprise users, where you want to have this extra level of control between, you know, a team introducing a new topic and there's this administration team, maybe your DevOps, that do capacity planning, and they want to have that extra check of, you know, who's creating what. So we have this approval flow baked in as well. If we look now at one of our topics, you'll see that off the bat, we're actually fetching data. And Lenses does automatic discovery of schema. So even if you don't use Schema Registry, you'll still get the visibility and observability here by just being able to easily understand your data. You can see that the structure is right here. We can even see it as a table, which I personally prefer. What you will notice is that the metadata of Kafka are first-class citizens in our table. You can see that we have the offset, the partition, and the timestamp right on the row level, as well as the key fields and the value fields. Now, here comes the useful bit, because you can now navigate anywhere you want in the topic in many ways. If you know the exact position in your offset, well, let's put it, there you go. We can also do it more manually and visually, right? Let's say it's about here that we want to start looking for data, very easy. What's even more powerful is doing it by time. So let's say that something happened on the 1st of the month at 9 o'clock in the morning. Very easy to get there. So you can imagine troubleshooting or even just navigating to the data becomes much faster now. Another cool thing is, of course, we can utilize the power of Lenses SQL in our data exploration. Here, we're talking about shipping positions. And it so happens that we have information around the ship's speed. So let's try and find some fast ships. You can see we've got IntelliSense. We understand the schema, right? So we get auto completion. And let's say I want to create a query that's giving me ships with higher speed than 20. That's it. Very easy to do. Wow. Again, the idea is to offer many options for you to get to the data you need to.
Now, I want to circle back real quick. You were talking about approvals earlier. You know,
yep.
What's an instance where you would set an approval? Who would be the approver and who would need the actual approval?
Right. So what tends to happen is when you have a centralized Kafka platform that potentially uses very sensitive information, very sensitive data, maybe transactions if you're a bank, right? What tends to happen is that there is a guardian of this platform and the data that comes with it. And that guardian is usually the platform team. Now, you want to strike the right balance between allowing application teams to offer, to be empowered, to offer their features in the most productive way, while at the same time offering that gatekeeping to your platform team so that nobody gets to affect the centralized Kafka in a way that they shouldn't. When things can go wrong is, imagine that I'm in team red and I start creating hundreds of topics just because nobody told me that I couldn't do it. So I just go ahead and do it and I forget to delete them. I can very quickly affect the performance of the rest of the Kafka, right? That centralized Kafka, and it can go out of hand. That's when you would usually have approval flows. So now I can still introduce the topics on my own. I can decide on the best configuration, what's the replication factor. But there's this intermediate step that it will automatically lenses send a notification to your platform team. They will review it, they will say yes, and everything else will be done automatically. So it's that striking that right balance.
Makes sense. Very cool.
All right, where were we? Right, on data exploration. Another good thing that is especially useful when it comes to testing, whether you want to replay manually or whether you want to do some tracer bullet tests, you can insert records. And because Lenses understands the schema, it means that it can help you fill the data without you going one by one. This, of course, is randomized data, but that means that you can only change what you need to change. Let's say I just want to check something about Canadian messages. Well, there you go. You change the location, and the rest you don't care. You insert it, it's done. When it comes to understanding more around your topics, we said that we understand the schema. If it's provided by Avro, we give you the full information on it. You can, of course, edit it. You can change the types. We offer a lot of information around your partition management. You can see here that we have a heat map that gives you the distribution of data across the partitions. This can be very useful because depending on the strategy you use for partitioning your data, you might end up with imbalanced partitions. If, for example, we use semantic partitioning and we use the name or the ID of the ship, in this case, for our partitions, it means that for a given ship, all of its messages are going to end up in one partition. And if that ship generates a lot of messages, we're probably going to load one partition more than the others. This could become a problem. So this is an easy way of figuring it out.
What kind of problems can arise from that?
Basically, because one partition will sit on one broker, right? You could have brokers that are much more heavily loaded than other brokers. And that imbalance, if not treated right, could end up putting a lot more pressure on certain machines of your Kafka and eventually bring them down.
Is that something you see frequently when you speak to prospects?
This tends to happen either when Kafka has not been provisioned with enough leeway. So when you're starting with and you want to be cost efficient, you start with a small Kafka, and you start shipping as many data as you want in order for you to gain some insights. That's when stuff like that can happen. You have a small Kafka, you're pumping a lot of data, you try to use good partitioning because you want to leverage your keying for finding data, right? Or for achieving in-order delivery. And then all of a sudden you have brokers that are much heavier than others and they're brought down.
Oh, that's not good.
All right. What else do we have here? All right, we have more information. For example, what's the leader broker? Because right now on Kafka, for each partition, it needs to choose one particular broker to serve from, even though you might have replicas. The earliest and latest offset, so you understand, where am I sitting on in position-wise, and of course your replication situation. Because we have replication 2 in this topic, it means we have one more replica. You get to see which broker it is, and of course that it's okay. On the consumer section, we get to see our dependents, who's actually reading from us right now, and you get to see the lag. And if this lag remains positive, or even if it grows persistently, this is probably an indication that our application is not catching up. And that means we need to scale the application up. On the configuration section, most of us have probably experienced this, that Kafka is very heavy on configuration. At Lenses, we try to make it as easy as possible to navigate around this. So here we present all the configuration of our topic. We have available the documentation of each configuration section, so it's easy to understand what this is about. The value as currently configured, but also how it compares with the default value, so we have a point of reference, because otherwise it might not mean much. And of course, because we understand all the configuration, it means that we can make it quite easy to change it. We have tab completion here, we give you the default value, and we can set it to a new one, and done. At this point, what I would like to say is that all of this that we're doing manually by pointing and clicking is backed by a REST API, and we also offer a Lens CLI, which means that all of this can be automated. What's more, at Lenses, we're really strong supporters of GitOps, which means that you can extract all of this. You can extract your Kafka topics, your Kafka connectors, your processors into YAML files, have them on your Git repository, use all of your methodologies around software development, pull requests, and every new change that is being introduced, you then have automation, maybe through GitHub Actions or Jenkins, and automatically import these changes through Lenses to your Kafka.
Why would, sorry,
Yeah.
Adam, why would someone edit their topic configuration?
Right. This is because you might want to change certain things around your topic. For example, if you have retention, which controls for how long a topic will keep data, you might have had it maybe only for a day, and you realize that you need to keep a longer history, maybe for a whole week. That would be a change. Now, of course, you can go and do it manually, but then you lose track of who did what and when, right? And it can get very hairy very easily. The idea is that if you can export this into YAML files, then all of a sudden you treat this exactly as you would treat the rest of your software, right? Everything is declared, everything is version controlled, so nothing gets missed. You have access to the full history of changes. And that is quite empowering for application teams. The other cool thing, of course, is that because now we have a standard way of introducing data concepts, topics, connectors, processors, it means that we can have a standard way of promoting these changes across environments. Let's say that my application team introduced a new topic on our dev environment. Well, now promoting that to our production environment is just a matter of using CI/CD with Lenses GitOps and just applying the same YAML files to your production environment, and you have everything consistently promoted. So again, that saves a lot of time around trying to keep environments consistent. All right, that's it really quickly around navigating with Kafka topics. What I also like to show is that ElasticSearch, we have quite a few of our customers that use ElasticSearch as part of their end-to-end streaming platform. It's an emerging pattern. And also it ties well with the wider Lenses vision, which is not to stay specific to Kafka, but to actually involve more and more of the streaming citizens in technology and bring that holistic experience. So here, basically, you can see that we've connected to an ElasticSearch instance, and we already have access to the various indices, which means that we can navigate to them. We get that same experience of accessing the data. You can even see a data policy, a Lenses data policy in action for masking data. We'll get to it later as well as schema information and the sharding situation for index. Again, it's that same kind of experience, but across technologies now, which allows anyone from developers to business analysts to now do cross-checking between systems. If I have data on Kafka eventually piping to Elasticsearch, can I correlate them now? That's the idea. On Schema Registry, this is where we offer management of schemas. So let's really quickly have a look at one for that topic that we're looking at. All right, this is an Avro schema. We also support evolution of other schemas, could be JSON, could be XML. Here you can see that we have syntactic checking, right, for introducing changes, but also validation. So if I try to change this field, which is supposed to be a number, to a string, this is going to break my schema compatibility. You get full access to the versions of all the changes as well as the evolution. You can see it all done here. And you can also change the compatibility level according to the semantics of Avro. right? You might want forward, backward compatibility. You can all do this from here. If we move on or back to SQL, we kind of saw it a little bit, but what I wanted to show you is that you have a dedicated place that you can start asking all kinds of interesting queries right here without worrying about, deploying or introducing new infrastructure. And one of my favorite features is the idea of a live aggregation. It's almost like a live dashboard. So here, let's say I want to count the number of ships by speed and around the speed as well. Whoop, from position reports, group by round of speed. All right, I'm going to run this. It's already running, and I should start seeing data coming back. Here we go. And you can see that it's being updated as we speak.
Oh, wow.
So this is live. You can see what's happening under the hood. And the idea is you can actually tap into the stream right now. You can get some useful insights without having to implement anything. It's almost like a first take on streaming business intelligence, right? All right, that's the idea around SQL Studio. Where I'm going to go now is I'm going to go to the flow section, which captures how all the different systems connect to Kafka. So let's go to the topology view. Right. So here we have quite a few things showing. And let me try and describe it. On the left side, these puzzle pieces are Kafka connectors acting as sources, bringing data from external systems into Kafka. Here, for example, we're bringing data from an MQTT source or maybe from an SQL server with CDC. And I think we have some logs somewhere hidden. There we go. We have some logs as well.
Hmm.
On the other side, those other puzzle pieces are again Kafka connectors, but they're acting as sinks. They're taking data out of Kafka to external systems. So here we're pumping data to an InfluxDB or to an S3 bucket on AWS or maybe a MongoDB. And in the middle, we have our Kafka topics. These are the folder icons. And we have two types of processors. We have your own custom applications here that you can create with any kind of technology, whether it's JVM or not. It could be Go, it could be C++, it could be Python or C#, .NET. Doesn't matter. You can register them all in our topology. And then we have our SQL processors. And the idea is that you can actually perform business logic and ship it to production without writing anything more but just SQL. Here, for example, we're doing some basic frauds detection. You can see that we're combining information from two topics, the sort of slower moving credit card data coming in and the faster paced payment transactions. And we're achieving the fraud detection only with this much of SQL, nothing else. Then lenses, yeah.
Why is this so essential to our customers, especially those with bandwidth constraints?
Yeah, so it captures quite a wide variety of use cases. One could be for simple sort of data cleansing and data wrangling. Let's say you have data in a few topics and they have more information that you need to promote to your systems downstream. Or maybe you need to transform or slightly change the data so that they're easier to analyze afterwards. Usually what you would have to do if you want to do it as a streaming thing, you would have to write code to do this. You would have to package the code, find a way to deploy it, worry about where it's running, just to do a bit of data cleansing. For that, SQL is such an easy way of doing it. And most of us are comfortable with SQL. We don't even need to be very technical, right? You can even be a data analyst or a business analyst. So all that, and there's an urban sort of legend that in the data world, we spend 80% of our time preparing the data and only 20% actually getting to do something useful. So a lot of that 80% can be tackled just with a bit of SQL. But then going beyond that, you can actually do interesting analytics with it. You can do aggregations, you can do sums, you can do groupings, you can even introduce your own user-defined functions, UDFs. So you can actually start doing business analytics. You can do business logic, again, just on SQL. And the other positive thing is that Otherwise, let's say even you had already implemented your code. Well, then you need to worry about how are you going to package the code? Where are you going to ship it? Where is it going to run? What happens if you need to scale it? The idea is that Lens's processors, SQL processors, take care of that for you. And not only that, but they take the SQL and they optimize it, because under the hood, the engine translates it into a Kafka Streams optimized app that's built to run as performant as possible against Kafka. You can see here, for example, that Lens's SQL we wrote. This is the topology, kind of like a Kafka, sorry, like a Spark topology if you've used Spark. It describes all the transformations that are taking place. It even tells you how it perceives each topic, because there are different semantics, whether it's a Kafka table or a Kafka stream. So all that is done automatically for you. So yeah, it saves tons of time. And
You're kind of
hopefully,
80-20
yeah,
cause and effect, right? Like Pareto's law, right? More time to
exactly.
have the effects and grow your
And the
business.
other thing is, because it's done with SQL, it should lower the boundary of entry of people into a streaming data world, right? You no longer need to be a developer. It's much easier for somebody to understand SQL. It's much easier to introduce changes here, even if they're not techie. Right. Let's go and have a look at the SQL processors. I've actually gone ahead from a previous demo and created one so we can have a look, but this is how you would create one. You basically enter a name here, let's say fast chips 2, and you say auto create if you wanted to create from scratch the output topic, and you can say insert into my topic, and then if we want to use the same SQL that we did for those fast ships, say from position reports where speed greater than 20. Then you select where you want to ship it. So good news is that Lenses integrates out of the box with your Kubernetes cluster, and it allows Lenses to manage the full life cycle of your applications. But if that's not an option for you, Lenses can also deploy them on Kafka Connect. And for very quick testing, you can also deploy them locally on the Lenses systems. But of course, that doesn't scale. So we have one running already. Fast ships. There we go. It's already running. You can see that it's bringing data in, and it's running with 4 runners already. You can see that we have 4 runners on Kubernetes, 4 pods. Now, here's the benefit of allowing something like Lenses to manage your application. It means that you can control scalability now. Let's say that we have a massive influx of data. I need to scale up. Let me scale to 8 runners. That's it. That's as easy as it gets. It's done automatically. You get monitoring, everything in one place.
That sounds super helpful, especially for times like this when COVID is impacting the scale of e-commerce. Just being able to change that super quick.
Exactly. And the idea again is that emerging pieces of work that developers and teams do again and again, the idea is to have tooling that takes those emerging patterns, automates them, and removes them from your daily workload. So you actually get to do more and more interesting stuff. Right, on the connector side, we also integrate with your Connect clusters. Here we've connected with 2, a production and development one. It's very easy to create a new connector. Let's say we want to ship some data to Mongo. There we go. We understand the required configuration as well as the optional one. So again, try to make it easy for you to navigate around the configuration. We also give you a link to the documentation. And if we have a look at one running, maybe this one, you get to see the configuration that it's running with, all the tasks that are running. You get metrics and the task configuration as well, all in one place. And again, this can be controlled. You can ship connectors. You can create connectors through our REST API, and you can even do it with as YAML, right? Again, that DevOps, DataOps approach. All right, now where we're putting a lot of effort and we're bringing a lot of new functionality is on the apps section and the apps management. Starting now, we have a dedicated place where you can see all your custom applications that you're registering with lenses. This has shown in the topology as we've seen. And this is a space to look into because we're going to be bringing a lot more interesting features here. On the monitoring side, we have a dedicated place for our consumers. We kind of seen a little bit, but what I want to show you is how easy it is to reset offsets. Basically, this is extremely useful if you want to replay messages, if you want to reprocess things, or maybe you want to skip corrupt messages. All you have to do is take your consumer to be inactive. This is a Kafka limitation, but then you go to each partition, you can choose where you want it to be. All right, let me go a little bit back. I can even see how many messages I'm going to replay. Now that's great, but imagine if you're consuming a huge partition, a huge topic with 100 partitions, or even multiple of those. Going one by one is pain. Instead, you can do it all in one go. So if I click here, then I will be reprocessing everything from the beginning. Or maybe I want to skip everything and just go fresh. Even better, I can say, you won't know what? I want to reprocess everything from the 27th of the month at around 1:30 in the afternoon. I save it, and Lenses will take care of adjusting my consumer group for every single partition, for every single topic that I'm consuming to that date and time. Saves you immense amount of time.
Now, who at the company would find this helpful? Like, who focuses on this?
Basically, the moment you start consuming data, so that could be as simple as, even if you use Kafka as a middle bus between two systems, let's say a legacy database and a new data lake, you would need to have connectors there, right? To ship data to your new data lake. Well, let's say that something happened, there were a few corrupt messages, you need to skip them. That's where you get to use this. You can very easily say, you know what, skip everything, go there. Or you had a certain trouble at a specific day, replay them, very easy. And the fact that you can do this regardless of how many partitions you have, it means that you can very quickly respond to these situations regardless of how big scale you're operating at. Because if, for example, you're creating a data lake with hundreds of topics and hundreds of partitions, going one by one, you would need like hours of someone's time to reprocess. Now you can just do it with a couple of clicks. All right, a little bit more on the monitoring side. We also offer infrastructure monitoring. So we have some information around your Kafka brokers, how's the CPU looking, the disk usage, the JMX metrics are available, as well as what partitions am I placing in this broker, all in one place. If you're using Grafana, we have good news. We spend quite a bit of time with Grafana templates. Actually, we had one of our DevOps guys spend pretty much a whole year trying to hone down a Kafka cluster dashboard because just there's so many metrics and it's really hard to understand what metric should you be looking at for what reason. So here we've come up with a layout that we've gotten quite a good feedback from our customers. And you will notice that we're also introducing documentation, kind of like pragmatic information on when you should be looking at these numbers. What do they actually mean? And they're all part of the offering. Okay, so that's the basics around what you can do with lenses. Where I'm gonna take you now is around the administration side and then to the policies, that data masking. So the administration side, this is where we're talking about, okay, how do I allow access to my platform? The way we do it is through groups and namespaces. The idea is to allow you to do quite a flexible management of this access. Let's say that I have a team red and I want to specify certain topics that they should have access to. Let's say I want to give them access to engines and maybe their dev topic as well. Oh, no longer there. Wait. Engines, and let me pick one more. Customer details. Okay, I want to give them read-only access. So I'm going to allow them to view the data, view the schema, and where is it? Show topic. Yeah, great, perfect. Now, what about their own topics? well, let's see. I want to create one topic for them for their sales. Great. But now that means that every time this team has to create a new topic, I have to go in there and edit this. That doesn't scale. That's why we're introducing namespaces with wildcards. So I could do something like team red star, and this will capture any topic existing or not that starts with that prefix. And if I give them full access, now it means I've empowered them to have full control over that area of Kafka. Anything that starts with team red, they can do whatever they want. But outside that namespace, there are limitations. The benefit of that is that you can now start bringing in collaboration between teams. Imagine that there's a team blue. I can introduce namespace to allow for team red to access certain things of team blue. Let's say I want all the sales topics to be readable by team red. There it is, that's it. And because I've restricted to view data, it means that even if team red uses GitOps, they have their own team red repository for their topics, and they introduce a new topic. By mistake, they get confused, they introduce a topic that starts with team blue. Thanks to these permissions, lenses will not allow them to introduce that topic, right? Because they're only allowed to read from team blue. So again, that makes it very easy for you to allow each team to become productive while at the same time be able to access the right level of data from other teams. And of course, we also offer application permissions and the administration of lenses itself. We have a dedicated section for managing your users. And we have service accounts, which you can use for automation. Let's say I have a Jenkins here. All right, I'm gonna be the owner. And this Jenkins should operate under the permissions of DevOps. All right, we've auto-generated a token, copy it, and there we go. I can use it now against the REST API of Lenses or with the Lenses CLI, and everything is open to automation. Okay, let's move to the alerts section. So Lenses out of the box comes with a whole set of alerts for infrastructure, for example, whether things are down, whether you've got under replication happening. You can selectively enable what you want, and you can also route them to multiple alert channels. We offer out of the box quite a wide variety of integrations, Slack, PagerDuty, and you can create multiple channels of each, select where you wanna route them. We also have alerts around topic management and Kafka Connect and custom rules for your applications. If, for example, you have a very time-critical application that should not lag more than 30 messages, it's very easy to create an alert. You can say, okay, this is around, let me choose this group, and it's around, let's say, this topic, and I'm gonna send it to my Slack. That's it. I create it and it's done. Lens will take care of producing alerts if and when my application lags behind. You can access all the events here, but what's more interesting is that you can start shipping these events to your enterprise or team alert system. Here we have yep.
Absolutely love this.
Yep, it's quite flexible. So you can very easily create a new alert channel, right? Whether you want it to be Slack, PagerDuty, webhook to any kind of integration, maybe Microsoft Teams, Datadog, Prometheus, CloudWatch. And of course, when it comes to how Lenses connects with any external system, could be an alert system, it could be a data system, everything is handled through the connections. Here, for example, you can see that we are managing the connection to certain alerting systems, a couple of Datadogs, some Slacks, but also to a data system like Elasticsearch. And the idea is that everything is managed centrally, right, with a secret management. All right. At the beginning, we mentioned that when we introduce changes to our platform, new topics, we have this approval flow. You can see an example here. This is where our administrators would go and see what's pending and approve it. And this is the registry, right, of something that's already been approved. And you can see all the information. What was the topic, who was reviewed by, who requested it, everything. So it gives you that extra facilitation for bringing teams together. The other thing I wanted to show you is, of course, if you need to, you can also go at the very granular level of managing Kafka ACLs. It's not something we suggest for human access, just because it can lead to an explosion of ACLs you have to deal with. This is more for applications. The same thing goes for quotas. And finally, what I wanted to show you is our data policies. And the idea is here that we can create a policy that we can describe what does my sensitive data look like, and it will start automatically masking it. So let's say have some sensitive data here. Here we can choose what strategy we want for masking data. Let's say I only want to expose the first 2 characters. It's a PII category and of high impact. And here I get to write the fields. So let's say I have first name and maybe I have last name. All right, if I go and create this policy, lenses will start automatically scanning for data and masking them. And I believe I have it here already. There we go, first name, last name. And let's have a look at what's happened. So Lenses has gone wide across your streaming platform, across all the systems that it understands, and found where you have this sensitive data. So in Kafka, all of these topics contain this data, but it's even gone to Elasticsearch and found that for you. What's more, it's gone a step further and it's detected on a flow level. Do I have connectors that deal with this data? Do I have processors or applications? And if we just have a look at what that looks like. So we're looking at first name and last name, right? Let's fetch some data. All right, so there you go. First name, last name is obfuscated. We only get to see the initials, but we're having obfuscation from another policy around credit card numbers. So all the asterisks are thanks to lenses. And this can become quite powerful at the point of data democratization, because now it means that you can have anyone in your company accessing, exploring the data, seeing if there's anything that they can use to gain more insights without worrying about accessing things that they shouldn't or seeing things that they shouldn't. And we've had some great stories from some of our banking clients that they really tried to challenge the status quo and decided as a strategic point to allow data access to open it across their departments. And it took them a few months psychologically because people were so, almost like a Stockholm syndrome, used to, I shouldn't touch that. I'm going to get in trouble. That slowly they started realizing that it's okay. It's okay. We've got the right mechanisms in place. And for the first time, departments started seeing that they could use other people's data to produce combined insights that before it would take forever to even understand that that was possible, right? Now you can actually have everybody just looking at data. And that's the idea.
Do you know how that's impacted the business over there?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that's worked in either a quite regimented business or a big corporation, I'm sure you've experienced that in order to gain control, everything has to be, locked down and even siloed. So for teams to eventually realize that they can combine their efforts to produce something new, it would involve months or even years. Somebody has the idea down below, tells it to their manager, things get lost. And to get trickled down all the way to that the people who are close to the data can actually talk, bring the data together and say, let's do this. Sometimes it would even be impossible. Things would just not be, they wouldn't even realize that that was possible, that the other team could help them. And now it's a matter of minutes because they all can see the data in practice.
That's fantastic.
And I think with that, we've pretty much covered most of what Lenses is.
Fantastic. Big thank you to Adamos for a great demo of the platform and making it come to life. Let's take a minute to submit any remaining questions, and then we'll move to Q&A. So just take some time, submit any questions you may have, and we'll start answering them. Thank you.
Great stuff. All right, let me stop my sharing as well. and let's move on to the questions.